Okay, Bismillah. Oh, I forgot I got rid of I put a professional bio now instead of the lady in the tree, which you can still see the lady in the tree in the icon. But anyway, welcome to another session of Lisān Lab, or guerrilla radio, as I'm now as I've now been thinking about it, and which I can't help but really emphasize, because whether you realize it or not, by thinking freely, you are being a rebel. You are opposing the status quo. You are, fighting the man, really. And I think many of us do like to think freely, especially if you participate in these sessions. And so, in my eyes, you are a rebel, and not just a rebel without a cause, but really a revolutionary, right? Revolutionary of truth, ثائر الحق, as one of my favorite sheikhs would say, or ثائرة الحق, which means revolutionary of truth.
Oh, I thought you were being like gender inclusive. Is it by default feminine?
ثائر, I think, is by default masculine. It'll just be اسم الفاعل, right? Just be that agent noun for ثائر فاعل. I could be wrong. I don't know exactly how that works in Arabic. There are some nouns that are genderless but masculine, or like their default, like nas, I think, is masculine, but it refers to like men and women. Anyway, that's debated too. Some people say it doesn't, or it only refers to like mukallafun, people who are like responsible, or of a certain age. Okay, so back to Guerrilla Radio, or Lisān Lab, and our freely thinking project and exploration and discovery of language. So today we reach al-hakam.
Are you recording?
Yeah. So today we get to al-hakam, which is usually translated as the judge, I believe, which is an idea we've come across before. Here we are. Does anybody have any thoughts? Anything they want to start us off with? There's actually something that I want to go back to from Al-Basir. But if there's anything anybody wants to start us off with Al-Hakam, please feel free.
I need to vent. Can I start?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's really interesting and telling that Al-Hakam comes after like sense-related names like As-Samir and Al-Basir, and then Al-Hakam, and then it's just before Al-Adl and Al-Latif. SubhanAllah, I didn't even realize the order. Like I didn't realize Al-Adl and Al-Latif were next, but I think it makes a lot of sense because to me, the two things that stuck out to me in the chat before this were the picture of the bit, the harness that you put, and also the question of like what is wisdom, right? To me, based on recent experience, I have realized that, well, I mean, I knew, but I've like experientially realized, I guess, that wisdom is embodied, like truly embodied knowledge. So it's like it, and which includes like comes to include mercy, consideration, all this kind of stuff. But basically, when you have embodied knowledge, like anyone can make claims to wisdom based off of information and based off of knowledge, but it's you can like these things are more things that you can accumulate. Like they're kind of like you're picking up things and you're accumulating things. But until it like fully embodies into you, and what does embodiment mean is like the fact that it turns it alchemizes itself and it completely absorbs into your bloodstream, like food. When you eat food, when it's like fully metabolized and it's fully absorbed into your bloodstream, like that is like if there was a food that there's no waste product from it, you know, it completely 100% gets absorbed into your bloodstream and then like completely just like becomes part of you at a cellular level. That is embodiment. So the non-wise may make claims, but they won't be embodied. And where that shows up the most kind of in the most damning way is in the heat of a difficult moment or in an unfamiliar or uncomfortable position. The self-interest takes over completely and they can't act in a just manner. They can't be considerate anymore because that kind of need to protect themselves or their own interests or their own comfort, like it kicks in and it acts out at the expense of whoever or whatever. Whereas wisdom prevents you from wrongdoing. Like even if you are wronged, even if you would be within your right to say or do something that is reflective of anger or you know like you're taking your right and in a way, not that we shouldn't take our right, but it's like it just doesn't allow you to act in like a harsh and especially like unjust way. Like it makes you a lot more considerate and a lot more like well-rounded. Even if you want to, you can bring yourself to do it. So in that way it's kind of like you're never the same again. Like once wisdom truly like sinks in and like becomes part of you, it's almost like it chooses you. And once it does, because we seek wisdom, obviously, like we seek to be wise and to become wise, but it's a process of like trial and error. And I think it's very much it's not something that you should even try to undertake on your own, because you should always ask Allah to grant it to you, because he's the only one that can really like make that happen for you. And when it does happen, like you're just not the same again after that. Like you can't behave in the way that you used to. You can't move in a way that it's exclusionary to this kind of newly integrated thing that's like it's external at first and you can really feel it. You feel like the friction between the parts of you that used to be and this kind of like everything that you've become through like the integration of wisdom. And then like I think at some point it probably becomes a norm. But in the beginning, like you notice it, you really notice like the differences. And so that holding you back image, like it's not holding you back in a painful way, the way that like when you hold back truth or you're living a lie, like it's painful for the soul. It's painful because you're blocking light and you're blocking the flow of truth. It's not being held back in that way. It's holding you back like in a way that's like elevating and medicinal. So it's knowledge that becomes embodied to the point where it becomes a healing balm inside of you. And it makes you kinder and more selfless, which from there you become more objective, which makes you truly just. And the true wisdom leads to true kindness. And that like goes to show like because Allah is like Al-Hakam, but he's also Al-Latif. Like Al-Adil. When you have that kind of a perspective, you can make the most informed and well-rounded decision because you truly are embodying and holding like the highest version of the truth in all formats. So yeah, there's also like something about intentions, but I can't remember what my point was. So anyway.
Thank you for that. You broke up a little bit at the end. But yeah, lots of different thoughts there. I guess the main thing, the main idea is, I mean, you said a lot of things. You talk about embodied knowledge. So I think one of the first things we need to do is what's the difference, disambiguate between knowledge and wisdom, because wisdom is one of the ideas here as well, which I guess we can just kind of click on. Oh, I just wanted to show, actually, if we go back. So Al-Hakam is here after As-Sami' Al-Basir, and then maybe about, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 names later, again, at Hakim, same root. So we can look at the root right away, I think. Let's get rid of the Arabic text. Yeah, so embodied knowledge and restraint, I think, were like the two main ideas that kind of stuck out for me. And I did put the picture in the group of I think there's different names for it. I think, or it has different parts. Like part of it is a bit, and that's the part that goes into the horse's mouth. And the other part is just like a halter, maybe even the girdle. I think I've also heard it called, but in Arabic it's called a hakama, and so it's the thing that allows you to control the horse's direction, right? And if you've ever ridden a horse, or if you haven't, that's the main way that you control the direction that you are going. And how fast you're going is controlled by other things more than the direction of the horse's head, by how much you squeeze in with your legs and kind of the position of your back. But direction is pretty much completely controlled. I guess you can also do it with your legs too, but mostly it's done with the controlling of the horse's head. And the base verb, I think, yeah, the base verb, hakamahu here. Guess this is not it, but in one of these verbs, it's basically the base meaning is just to control a horse. So that's what we find to be the original meaning, is to control a horse's movement through the girdle or the halter that's attached to his head. Yeah, I think I want to just go back to al-Basir real quick before we go back to Hakama, unless anybody wants to clarify or has a thought in their head they want to cling to. But I'll connect it back to control and restraint. So this idea of like wisdom being tied to restraint, I think I came across it maybe like 10 years ago, probably. And it made sense to me in the in the obvious sense, right? That like, there's the saying that learning from your own mistakes is intelligence, or not learning from your own mistakes is ignorance, or someone who's not smart. Learning from your own mistakes is intelligence, and learning from the mistakes of others is wisdom. And then when I first heard about this root and some of the ideas in there and about controlling a horse, the bit part is actually the part that actually goes in the mouth, and that also kind of reminded me of how important it is, how important speech is to wisdom. So controlling your speech is kind of the wisest thing that we can do sometimes. And I think you were alluding to that too, Malcolm, when you were saying, like how we act in a moment of, distress or stress. And so it didn't really click for me. Like it clicked for me kind of superficially, like 10 years ago. Like, yeah, okay, it makes sense to me. Like the wise person is the one who restrains himself. Yeah. But it didn't really fully click for me, I guess, until like last night, literally. And it's because of the 99 names and because of the list and the order of the list. Um, yeah. So But I guess to explain that, let's go back to al-Basir. And I think the one thing that we didn't mention in the 2 sessions that we had that was probably the most important concept, I think, for al-Basir, and maybe even the most important concept in Islam altogether, honestly, at least like with eschatology and with respect to self-development and even understanding of the mind, right? And it's this ayah in Surah بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة ولو ألقى معاذيره لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به. It's Surah Al-Qiyamah, I think, right? So that ayah says that the human being himself is basir over his own self, right? And this is an idea that we've heard before in the Quran, so it's not that new and that revolutionary, right? That we will be our own. But I do think it's what makes Islam unique in the Abrahamic religions and among all faiths in general, really, right? It's that like human beings will be enough of an account themselves, right? You know better than anybody else how you should be judged. Um, Even if we turn a blind eye sometimes and just become hamsters in a wheel, just going through the motions of life and modern life, especially in the back of our heads, we know, right? And it says in the Quran and other places, right, that like our legs will testify against us and our skin will testify against us, which is terrifying, but also like very logical when you think about it. I think too, right? Like the evidence of everything that we've done in our lives is on our own selves, in our own selves. Which reminds me kind of randomly of like, what we call firasa in Arabic, or perspicacity, or, the ability to kind of like look at somebody and understand what they've been through just by, the lines in their face and on their lips. You can see the good and the bad just by looking at how someone's face aged, I think. And some people are especially good at it. That's why the hadith says, "Ittaqu firasat al-mu'min." Beware of the firasa, or the wisdom or the insight of the mu'min, because he sees with the light of God.
Doesn't firasa and firasa also has the same root as horse, doesn't it? Because you were talking about horse riding. Faris.
Yeah, Faris is like a knight, yeah, or a rider, like I guess like a proficient rider, yeah. Yeah, so the idea that we will be our own accountant, when the day of accounts comes, right? And this idea of account is, we've held on to it fairly easily because it's clearly in the Quran and clearly talked about. But it's an old idea in every culture, and even Shakespeare writes about it, right? Being held to account. But I think the really powerful thing in this ayah, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا, right, is that God is saying that not only that we will be, hold ourselves to account, right? And not only that we will, that our bodies, ourselves, our own selves will testify against us. The word basira implies vision, right? We spent a while talking about basira, but we didn't talk about this ayah, right? And the main idea for me, or the main takeaway for me, was that, it implies like long-term vision, right? Like seeing something far out, right? Seeing something to an end, right? But I also kind of think of artists, right, or visionaries, or leaders, right, that have a clear idea of the future, or how they want it to be, and that's what basira is. That's what basar is, I think, right? It's not just vision, but it's like, or it's not just like plain like seeing, like, or like looking, like we, disambiguated last week. It's vision with imagination, with knowledge. And so that's the word that Allah uses when he talks about, how we will be, how we will hold ourselves to account. Not just that we'll hold ourselves to account, but that we know better than anybody else, like, and to a high degree, like we have a vision, I think, of ourselves, right? And we know better than anybody else how well we've kept to that vision or deviated from that vision. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that bears reflection and mentioning, that ayah especially. I think that's probably the most important ayah, I feel like, when it comes to understanding basar and that root and what al-basir means. And so that lead me to, the discovery that I had last night, where it's like, well, some people have bad visions, I guess, or some people have, wild visions. Some people have very impractical visions, maybe. Um, you know, we all know somebody, or maybe it's, we're guilty of, analysis paralysis, they call it, or just overanalyzing, or just overthinking. And so that's where hakam comes in, right? That's where wisdom comes in. It's like, I kind of think of like basira, right, or like basar, as like, like Superman vision. Like how he could like zoom in, and how they would like animate like this, or the way he could like see through walls and stuff like that. Like, this like, this three-dimensional kind of like animation would come out displaying his vision, right? It's something multifaceted, right? Multidimensional. That's how I kind of imagine basar. But then I think of like, when they depicted Superman as like, a teenager or whatever, when he was first getting his superpowers, and like the hearing was overwhelming for him, right? And he was just hearing too much, right? Kind of like the reference that I made to a Samia, or for Simmer, which is a puppy, about 3 weeks ago or whatever. The way a puppy is when he's, or any kind of small animal, even human babies, right? They're very sensitive to sound. But then wisdom, growth, development becomes restraining that vision, or that sound, or that feedback, or that flow of information and energy, from the external into us. Nice timing. Feel free to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like you saying that about like the ability to hold all that noise because they start to develop wisdom, how come? Like that reminds me of Rasulullah because he said that I hear things that you don't hear, and like the heavens are creaking. And like we talked about this when we talked about Asimir, like how much he could hear, like he probably like the conversations of the plants, he could hear when the stones used to say salam to him when he used to pass salam. And so I wonder, like, with all of that sensory information, like he also had like information of everything, like things that would happen in the future, things that had happened in the past. Like he kind of had that not just through revelation, but also just given to him in his own being. And it's like that. I never thought about it that way. That it was actually like his great wisdom and everything that he knew that was also allowing him to stabilize that sensory experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are many accounts of like how revelation itself was stressful on him, even described as like as if someone was wrestling with themselves, right? Or I think there's even like one narration where someone's leg was underneath the Prophet's leg when he was receiving revelation, and the person said that I felt like my leg was going to break from the weight. So that's an interesting kind of idea. That we all have our limits and our capacities, and the Prophet ﷺ probably had, in some sense, at least, the greatest, or maybe in every sense, really, the greatest capacity for, I don't want to say pain, but sacrifice, or he had the highest. He could bear more than anyone could, I guess, in a way, right? That's what we have to believe, in believing that he was the greatest of creation, which is, thinking about the wisdom of the Prophet is like, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no other way to think about it, right? That, like, the one who had the most wisdom, really. Yeah, so I think that's kind of the key, to understanding intelligence, knowledge, and wisdom, is to understand how they're all connected, right? Like, I think the key to understanding al-Hakam really is to understand the link between the names too, right? Whoever ordered these names, and we'll look at the distribution in the Quran, I think, in a minute, but yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom just in that, in seeing how the different ideas connect, right? Like, how even just our hearing and our seeing, complement each other. And yeah, I kind of really see wisdom as like, if you imagine that, like, three-dimensional, like, cone of, like, Superman's vision or whatever it is, right? Like, just like everything that you can see within your vision, right? Within your capacity, within, not just your whatever vision you have with your eyes, but, like, even beyond that, like what you can imagine, right? You can stare at a scene and imagine the sun going up and going down, and you can, do all of this in your head, right? And this is all part of, like, I think, basar, right? It's all part of basira. But wisdom is narrowing that focus, right? Is narrowing that channel of information. Yeah, so I think that's really kind of critical principle, I think. I don't know where exactly it fits in my, like, ontology, or you know under, understanding and theorization of the self and the mind, right? Because, if we kind of start at the broadest level, then you have the self, then you have the mind, then you have the heart, you have the body, and then I think you have to get into, like, what's the difference between information and knowledge and wisdom. And I think this goes back to what Muhammad was saying about embodied knowledge, which I think is the distinction. I think that captures the distinction between information, like disconnected information, scattered information, or just data, and then organized information, right? Which is, like, connected in a meaningful way. And that's what knowledge is. And I think we talked about this before when we talked about alim, but, I think personally that the phonetics and the anagrams kind of lend to this, because if you take ilm, you have ayn lam mim, that's knowledge. If you jumble the letters and you get, or you just flip the last two, you get amala, which is action. So in your face, Zinira. Sorry. But I think that's one of the coolest anagrams anyway. So even though Zanir doesn't like.
Sorry, what did you say? I kind of
No,
missed it.
no, it's all
Okay.
right. Nothing
No, it's not
serious.
alright.
I
I
was
want to
just
know.
saying. Oh, then you'll have to listen to the recording. No, I was just making a joke about anagrams and how you don't
Yeah, but
believe in them.
I heard in your face, but what did you say right before that?
I think I just what did I say? I said, "Oh, amal and ilm," right? Like that's pretty obvious, like connection between between anagrams. So I said, "In your face, Zanira." Hard to deny that one.
Not. It's not. Did you say it's an obvious connection?
I think it's pretty
Maybe
obvious.
to you.
Okay.
I think there's a hadith about ibad and ulama and the virtue of one alim is over like 100 ibad. But ibad is also like amal salih. But anyway, it's not. You know, my issue with anagrams is I've been reading Surah Baqarah, and one of the issues that Allah recounts about um how do you call them?
Bani Israel.
Yeah, Bani Israel is this. I just want. ومن الذين هادوا يحرفون الكلمة عن مواضعه ويقولون سمعنا وعصينا وراعنا. So yeah, so it's like they would turn words around and and I think there's something else about it's all about shaitan as well, about like turning words around. And so that's not, yeah, that's what got me thinking about like there's something not okay with turning, because they would say سمعنا وعصينا, but also راعنا, right? And then yeah, it was just like an issue, and it's not like God is not praising them for saying that.
So they had
So yeah,
expressed like ill intention with that, right? Like they did that like knowingly on purpose in order to distort the meaning. Whereas I think if like in this case, like when we kind of make connections between them to expand like a good meaning, I feel like that would be fine. Again, it's like making sure we're not careless and also making sure that we're obviously not like intending like on purpose to twist something.
Yeah, I mean, that's one opinion, I guess. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I think they clearly had ill intention. So I don't think that's exactly the same. But yeah, that's fine. Moving on. Should we move on?
sorry, no, this is the translation. The translation is of the Jews, there are those who displace the words from their right places, or who change the words from their context. But I don't think that's what it means. But it says who alter the words from their places, and then they distort the word ra'ana with their tongues by twisting their tongues to make a jest out of the true religion. So yeah, of course there is, but it's just something about doing that God does not really like, I guess. And yeah, and it's mentioned in other contexts, in other places as well, about shaitan, about that it's not like that he makes you like, he guides people to say things. الشيطان إن الشيطان إنه يأمركم بالفحشاء والمنكر وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون, things that you don't know about Allah, and then تلبسوا الحق بالباطل, like they cover the haqq with the batil. So it's like, it's not a completely different thing, but it's just like a slightly different thing. And so that's what anagrams feel like to me. They're just like a slightly different thing, and they're moving letters from their place where we don't know if that kind of link actually exists. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much all I have on Al-Hakam. Excuse me. I think we can take a look at the Quran, I guess. There's lots of different derivatives for this root. But Yeah, I think we kind of captured the core and the at least some scope of its range. Hakama, as we said, uh, in its base original meaning can mean to just like control or restrain or direct a horse. But obviously it can also mean to judge or make a judgment of some sort, which is just kind of another way of saying restraint, right? I think, which is an interesting like meta ontological point, maybe, or metaphysical point, that restraint seems to be a kind of like fundamental frame in some way, right? Some kind of like basic cognitive operation. So Allah is Al-Hakam, but He's also Hakim. I guess we don't see Hakim, but Hakim is another derivative, which would mean also judge. So the difference between Hakam and Hakim and Hakim is kind of interesting. Generally, Hakam, that form, Fa'al, generally is used as kind of like the infinitive form of an action, right? An infinitival action. So I think it could kind of refer to not just a judge, in the simple, reference, sense, right? Like referring to a judge of some sort, but the act of judging. Whereas Hakim, right, kind of is more in that active sense, right? That kind of continuous sense. Hakim Fa'il. And then Hakim is more in the passive sense, which, as we've talked about before, Hakim, Fa'il, Alim can have the meaning of Alim. So, you can really simplify the root and just make it all kind of the same, right? Like there's really not much of a difference between Hakim, and Hakim. They're all kind of close enough in meaning that you're not really going to go astray by bundling them up together.
I have a question.
Mm.
Hakam and Hakim. Like it's not just about like passing a judgment, like how a judge makes a pronouncement like guilty or not guilty, like or whatever, or like we make a decision in terms of like how you're going to deal with something or whatever. So that's one aspect of it. But then it also reminds me of like discernment. So like the ability to not really like kind of making like a binary decision maybe, but the ability to kind of organize reality, or kind of distinguish or kind of rank the quality or the likability or whatever of like anything. And so like that reminds me of kind of I forgot the first example, but it also reminds me of artists, like the creative process as well, right? Like you're making discernments and you're organizing. Oh, it reminds me, the first example was the Khalifa, right? Like how Adam alayhi salam, like he was given the ability through the names to put things in their rightful places. And Zanir, you were also mentioning like the ability to kind of make sure that things are in the right places so that they're not being distorted. I feel like you would need discernment for that. And I think then the artist in that way is like somebody who carries that discernment and is able to kind of order reality and order like kind of blend realms, right? Because you're getting from the alam al-khayal, like you're getting like your imagination, and you're getting these ideas, you're getting inspiration that's coming to you from somewhere else, so almost like divine communication, and you're able to order both what you have and what you're receiving and bridge them together in a way to kind of bring like a spark of creativity into the world, and to like deliver something into the world, which can in itself become something that is alchemical for others who interact with it, be it towards the good or the bad. But so like Hakim is, like we said, like it is like a judge, like somebody who was kind of doing that. But then Hakim is like somebody who's doing that like present continuous, right? Like that Hakim is somebody who continuously is able to discern, or is making decisions, right? Or is like kind of embodying wisdom. So I guess like the more you become embodied, like you go from a state of just being a hakim, like in a singular moment, at like a deciding moment, to just becoming a hakim in general. Like you're just wise in general, and it becomes a present continuous thing, that reality, the way it bends through you, whether or not you're making an active decision in a moment, like it's kind of bending through a path of like purification, or I don't know, ordering. Like you're like reality begins to order itself through you. So even if you're not actively making any decisions, or taking like steps, just your existence becomes like a magnetic pole for like reality ordering itself around you, even in the unseen, even like, beyond your control and stuff, just because you're embodying like that state. And that reminds me of how like the best state of dawah for a believer is like just to have good character. And you don't even have to be like in the business of dawah, but it becomes a dawah because everyone who looks at you at that point sees the faith reflected in you in a very pure way. And so it becomes like dawah on its own, even if you're not saying any words or you're never talking about God or anything. It's just your behavior, it's your character that becomes the dawah.
Yeah, that's a really important point too. I'm still kind of on that idea of reality ordering, though. That's interesting. But yeah, on the note of like, self-control, self-restraint, reservation, I think it was just yesterday in the khutbah, somebody was mentioning, Jum'ah khutbah, Friday khutbah, somebody was mentioning how like Imam Malik's mom, when she advised him, when he was of age, I guess, to start his academic or, whatever career, and she would send him off to, I forget the sheikh's name. She said, take from his adab, take from his manners before you take from his knowledge, which, I think it's exactly mirroring what you're saying, in that wisdom is really, just being knowledgeable is great, but being knowledgeable is better, right? I mean, sorry, being wise is better, and that is, more than just embodied knowledge. It's, uh, you know, um, it's self-actualized, right? Like you are restraining yourself, right? So you have to be constantly aware of yourself. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of the hadith of Omar when he said, um, imagine that you're walking through a thorny, pathway, right, with thorny bushes, right? What do? You pull your garments close so they don't get caught. Similar kind of idea of restraint. And that, I think that relates to reality ordering too. I think you meant it, maybe in the sense of like God, right, as being the one who orders reality, right? God is, he's the one that decides when you woke up this morning, and he's also the one that decides, that, unfortunately, a bomb needs to, uh, end the lives of, these people in whatever place, or, he's the one that's ordering reality in that sense too.
No, not really. Like, yes, Allah is the one who does. I think for me, it's more like you become like a magnet, right? Like your energetic field becomes kind of embodied with this thing of like, like wisdom, which yes, Allah is allowing and is conferring, but you become, because as a Khalifa, you are meant to be a pole that is almost self-serving in that way. Like you're like, as in self-sufficient in that way, that your actions can magnetize you to the point where you're not having, like, obviously it is Allah who is the doer behind like everything, but it's like he gave us the power to be vicegerents, right? Like, so we can, like, an ambassador is not constantly like, in a, like with an earpiece to like their home country, like, always like like getting like the information of what to say in every moment, how to sign, what to write, what to do. Like when they're sent to another country, they know they have a brief and they're trusted to be competent enough to represent that country in another country and to be able to kind of make decisions and stuff like that. And it's only when things need to be signed off on or something like that that they, facilitate contact with their home country, and they kind of make these things, like they're kind of this bridge, but they're trusted to be self-functioning in that way. Whereas they're not like an entity of their own that's separate and have like separate power or separate dominion, but they're kind of like an ideal representative, right? And so in that same way, this for me, this concept came up first, and I had this realization first in context of the collective. So kind of bearing witness to the genocide for the past 2 years and everything, and kind of get like stepping into a space of deeper activism, I realized that you can't, no matter how much you want to, you can't always have like the kind of like impact that you want to have. You can't always be on the exact same wavelength all the time. And you also can't sacrifice yourself. The biggest thing of like being part of a collective is not to shut down yourself and become completely absorbed into the collective, but also you have to hold space to take care of yourself. And I don't mean self-care in like a commercial, modern, like new age sense. I mean like true nurturing of the self, and like, because, and sometimes that's all you can do. That's all the capacity you have, or that's all the like space that you have, like that's all the capability you have in your life. It might be because of financial restraints or like geographical restraints or whatever. But sometimes the only thing that you can do is to take care of yourself completely and make sure that you're not like melting down and you're spiritually and mentally sound. And that doesn't mean like hyper individualism. It just means taking care of yourself and nurturing yourself. And because we have to realize that we're all part of like an energetic web as well, the collective, the ummah as well, but also like, any kind of collective is like, it's a global collective, not just because like with our ability to connect with each other over Zoom, but also like we're all energetically linked. And so if you have like a system of pipes and then one pipe gets clogged, it's going to affect all the pipes around it. But if all the pipes are flowing, like every node is all unblocked and flowing and clean and pure, then the health of the entire web is ensured and improved upon. And so it's kind of like that, where you are, it's not just about our actions. Our ego tells us that our impact is only limited to the actions that we can do with the will like being put behind them, so the ones that we can cognitively like think of and then act upon. But that's kind of like a savior complex, right? And it's not all that is, because if that was the case, then even when it comes to earning Jannah, when it comes to earning Allah's pleasure, it would be quantitative. Like it would be about how many like reps you can do, how much dua you can make, how many like salawat you can send, how much like you can pray. Like it would be a race to like pray as many salah in the day as possible and do as many good deeds as possible, fast like every single day of the year if you can, and stuff like that. But it's not. You earn it through Allah's mercy. So there is something deeper happening there. And when, like I said, when you become embodied with something, anything, be it like wisdom, be it love, like whatever, your energetic field, your frequency changes. Like you embody a different frequency. And so when you go out, like you imagine that you're walking through like a scrapyard that has like a bunch of different materials, but it also has like bits of metal, and you're a giant magnet. So when you're like properly like you're a strong magnet, you're walking through this field, like the pieces of metal they'll start like organizing themselves around you. It's like, how you have that thing, that image where you have iron filings, and then you put in a petri dish, you put a magnet, you put in the center, and all the iron filings start pointing towards the magnet. And they all, like, even if it's chaos, they all become completely aligned and really neat. So it's like, just by you existing, it's not just about the actions that you can do, because we can never do enough. But when you just become, like, you start existing on like a higher frequency, then you start interacting, like your energetic field starts interacting with everything around you. And so reality starts kind of rectifying itself just by your energy, just by being in contact with your energy. So it's like, and I think that is like the deepest service that you can do, because in that way, you're always in ibadah, you're always in service, right? Like that's why they say, like, when you spend enough salawat on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you become aligned with this frequency. And so you kind of, it takes on a quality. The more zikr you're able to do, you become aligned with the frequency to the point where people can even sense it off of you. And like things can sense it off of you, and you're just more protected, you're more elevated, there's more light. Every word, like you might say less words, but every word is like a fountain. So yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, no, no, I love that. Yeah, I think I understand better now, but I think it's pretty much the same thing. I'm trying to get at too. With, I think it works both ways. I think, right? In that, like, hikmah is something, or al-hakim, maybe even al-hakam, right? Yeah. And you can see here on the screen, I think it's not found in the Quran as far as I can tell. Al-hakim is, but al-hakam is not. But anyway, I mean, hikmah is something that we want to embody. Al-hakim or al-hakam, um, or al-hakim, maybe some people think that's a name. That could be something that you want to embody as well in your own life, right? In your own self-development, in the same, uh, in a similar vein, I think, right? Like, the wisdom of why all the things happen in the way that they happen, in the sequence that they happen on Earth, that's only for Allah to know, and we believe that there is a wisdom behind it. As for our own lives, right? And I think this ties to the general theme of limited perception, our perceptions being limited. Um, we, reality is also what we make it to be. I think, and I've said this, I think, before, right? Even to the degree that, like, I think if you really wanted it to be day right now when it was night, or if you really wanted to bend the spoon in your hand, if you really, really wanted it, I think God would give it to you. But because you don't really want it enough, that's why you don't necessarily have it. So that's the idea of reality ordering is kind of interesting. And I kind of think of it as like filtering, right? Because perception is limited fundamentally, that means that we can never have complete knowledge, which means that whatever knowledge that we do have is by, some kind of selection process that we do, right? And then that's where wisdom comes into play, and knowledge as well. But, like, wisdom will give us the proper selection, right? It'll give us the proper way of filtering reality so that we are most visible to the things that we want to be visible to, and least visible to the things that we don't want to be visible to. And then, in the same kind of, like, energetic sense, that um, we don't see things that we don't want to be attracted to, and that we only see the things that um, will benefit us and that we want to be a part of, and a part of us. May Allah make that a reality for us. I think that's a daily struggle for sure, but that's what makes it different from knowledge, right? That's what makes wisdom different from knowledge. That we're not just like hamsters in a wheels in a cog, just getting up day after day, doing the same thing, but we're iterating. We're finding, like, at least one thing that we can do, like, a little bit better, or a little bit differently, even, right? I don't know if it was only on Fridays or if it was on Eid and Fridays, but the Prophet ﷺ would even take a different route backwards, right? When he would walk to the musalla for prayer, and then even just the way he would go back would be different, right? And I think, like, even that's just a testament to the beauty of Islam, and the beauty of self-awareness, and reality ordering, as you put it, or like wisdom in that sense of, like, being very intentional with the things that we consume, and the places that we go to, and the things that we surround ourselves with. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I mean, maybe we cut short. خير الكلام من what's the saying? I forget the saying. My mind is blanking, but it's a common phrase in Arabic for, like, the best speech is that which is cut short.
Can't relate personally, but yeah.
خير مما كثر وألهى. That's the end of the phrase, and
Sorry.
I'm forgetting.
It's because I have
I'm
a
forgetting what
fever
the first part
and
is.
I'm just a little bit zoned out.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah, that's
pray for you
fine.
guys. Not zoned out. I'm just
Inshallah.
like, I don't know, like, like fever dreams, but with open eyes. Like I don't know what's
No,
happening.
well, inshallah, you feel better. It is suddenly cold on this part of the world, so maybe there are seasonal shifts in the air. The idea of us all being connected and like a pipe system is very interesting. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about it, but it is something that I've thought about a lot. Um, and mostly in like a poetic sense, right? I've this one poem comes to mind. I think I've shared it before, where like one of the lines is, and the poet believes he brings the sunset up, right? Like, especially in the context of like, God uh, raises us different ranks, right? And he gives us each unique abilities and perspectives. So bringing those together is a challenge, and requires wisdom. Not just knowledge, but self-restraint and reality ordering. Yeah. So
I think wisdom also grants you like a strange amount of stamina, which I'm sure you can find a way to link to some aspect somehow.
yeah, no, I think that's I just I think a lot about the story of Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. I think it was during the Battle of the Trench, and it was like a really difficult time for the troops and the Muslim troops at that time, because they were like guarding the trench. And uh, the Prophet ﷺ wanted a spy or a scout to go and see what the other side was doing, because the conditions were getting pretty harsh, and nobody volunteered. And the Prophet ﷺ asked a couple of times, and nobody volunteered. It was just very harsh conditions. They hadn't eaten, it was cold. And so the Prophet ﷺ selects Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. He puts his hand on his shoulder or something like that, and then Hudayfa reports that like in that moment, like all my hunger, all my weakness, all my fatigue, it all disappeared. And it was just from the belief of the Prophet ﷺ and the selection of the Prophet ﷺ and the wisdom, of course, of the Prophet ﷺ, right? That dissipated all his worry and all his anxiety and all his stress, which is yeah, it's very powerful kind of idea. And the Prophet ﷺ also says that kullukum ra'in, right? Like all of you are shepherds, right? It's not just like uh, and I say this with every spirit of rebel or revolutionary or guerrilla warfare. Like we're all none of us are assigned to mediocrity, right? None of us are assigned to just like being a hamster in a wheel or a cog in a wheel, or whatever it is. We all have a purpose and a flock and a following to lead. And that's what the hadith says, right? Kullukum ra'in. Every one of you are a shepherd, and every one of you will be asked about your following. So yeah, I mean, I think those are خير الكلام من I gotta find the hadith, but I think it is a hadith too. I'm not sure, but the meaning of it is just basically the best of speech is that which is cut short and is better than that which is long and drawn out. Yeah, so yeah, I think
So
it's
that actually reminds me of like something my teacher said, but actually doesn't remind me because my brain isn't working. So I don't know what he said, but he said something similar to what you said, because he asked us to get. I mean, he teaches Ibn Arabi as well. His name is Dr. Mukhtar Ali. But he said, like, you guys need to collect hikam and bring it. And we were like, what's a hikam? What's a hikam? What are hikam? And then he was like, it needs to be like something that's like succinct and, like it encompasses, like it has to be concise and still have like a deep, profound meaning in it. So, yeah, like that was just what you said now. Yeah, I guess that's what the translation is. Aphorisms, Hikam ibn Atallah. And then I don't know, the other day at one of my dhikrs, Sheikh Noor's, sorry, my brain is anyway, yeah, Sheikh Noor was saying that Hikam ibn Arabi. And I was like, what? And so I asked my friend, I was like, does Ibn Arabi have like a Hikam? Like a book? Like Hikam ibn Atallah? And he said no. Oh, she said no. He just means like something that Ibn Arabi has said that's really wise. And I was like, okay. But yeah, we had to like find hikam, and by which he meant that it needs to be something that is like said in few words, but it has deep meaning.
Yeah. خير الكلام ما قل. خير الكلام ما قل ودل. I think that's a hadith, right? So the best of speech is that which is short and sweet, short and to the point. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's also why I think I was telling Mom before you came in, Zanira, about, changing the format a bit. Maybe, possibly. Since I'll probably be at my desk for the next few hours anyway. And then, maybe my friend Amar, who can't come in at this time, maybe he can come in a little bit later. And I think Mara even said she would come in later. So I might just stay on here. But yeah, no
What
reason
about
to go
changing it
for
to
hours.
Sunday? What
Sunday?
about changing it to Sunday? Yeah, at this time.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think I can do that, but
Yeah,
yeah,
Mara said she can do that too.
yeah,
What
maybe
about
we can
you?
maybe we just poll every week, like Friday or Thursday, and be like, hey, what day is better, Sunday or Saturday or Sunday? Because it's not always going to be the same for me, but and it might be good to switch it up. Next week, next Saturday, I will not be available, so that'll be the third of every Saturday. So I'll announce that as well.
I'm sorry, I don't know if it's because I have a fever. What does third of every Saturday mean? Do you
The
mean
third
third Saturday
Saturday.
of every month?
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant to say.
Okay.
The third Saturday of the month. Yeah, no, it's not your fever brain. Humma tahura, inshallah. Which means a purifying fever, inshallah. If you didn't know, or someone
Yeah.
curious. All right. Well,
Can I read something from Al-Ma'ani?
Yeah. Sure.
Yes. I was just thinking about you guys kind of touched on the meanings of them, but in the Arabic, I was thinking about how it links to the other names. So, just a second. Okay. Maybe not right now. Hold on.
Well, I mean, one thing you just reminded me of, in terms of the difference between
Okay, I can't read
hakam
it right now. It's fine.
okay, in terms of the difference between hakam and hakim, right? Hakim will be normally more in the passive sense, right? So it's he of wisdom, right? Or him of wisdom, or dhul hikmah, right? As we would say in Arabic, right? That's what hakim means, somebody who has wisdom. Whereas a judge is somebody who is actively, being wise, or actively making a judgment, actively restraining his perception and reality for a specific purpose. Whereas hakam, it, like I said, more usually like the infinitival form, usually like the infinitive of an action. So and you can see also how closely it is to, excuse me, you can see how close it is to hakama, right? So all you do is add the ta marbuta at the end, and you get the noun form, which means the girdle, or the halter, or the bit. So it's almost like al-hakam is to me almost kind of like an instance of judgment, right? Like, which kind of reminds me of the ayah that we mentioned last week. وَمَا أَمْرُنَا إِلَّا وَاحِدَةٌ كَلَمْحٍ بِالْبَصَرِ, right? And our affair is nothing but one thing, like the glance of an eye, right? Like that's how simple or trivial, the affair, our affairs are, or the affair of reality is to Allah, right? Just like the blink of an eye. All of existence is like a blink of an eye to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, amazingly powerful verse. But yeah, that's kind of what Al-Hakam, as differentiated from Al-Hakim, kind of has that sense for me. But I think, as I mentioned like 20-30 minutes ago, it doesn't appear in the Quran. We only see Al-Hakim. We don't see Al-Hakam. But I think it's probably inferred, and that's why it's in the list, from like verbs where Allah says, Wallahu yahkum. Sorry, I keep sneezing. Where the verb for hakama yahkumu is used for Allah in the Quran, so that's probably why Hakam is listed as a name. Although that is an interesting question, really, being like, why Al-Hakam, why not Al-Hakim? But I did not find any reasoning on that. Maybe it could be the difference between like Ahkama and Hakama. So I can look into that. But yeah, form 1 or form 4, since form 1 Hakama does appear, and form 4 as well. So that could be one reason why they have both names. I don't think Al-Hakim is in the list. All right, any other final thoughts in terms of Al-Hakim? Guess we should look at the list again. What's the next name? The next name is
Al-Adl.
Al-Adl. Yeah, so Samir al-Basir,
Hello.
Hakam
Can you hear me?
al-Adl. Yeah, we can hear you.
I found my notes. I can read something about Hakam. I found my notes from like 5 years ago. Actually, 7 years ago, subhanAllah. Okay, so I don't know how to read this, but I wrote it. So it's ليس العلم. Okay, never mind. That's about ilm. Oh yeah, so one of the hakam was لكل مقام مقال. For each level, there is a way of speaking, or for every situation, there's something to be said. And رب كلام جوابه السكوت. The best
رب سكوت أبلغ من الكلام. Yeah, is that what you're
رب
trying to say?
كلام جوابه السكوت. The best response is silence for many a thing. But this is the list of the hikam that people brought, I guess. Okay, so he said 2 qualities of hikmah. Oh, wait, sorry, I'm reading it like bottom up for some reason. Being given a little wisdom is like being given a lot of knowledge. Then it says, I wrote, 2 outstanding qualities of hikmah are sublimity, loftiness, and in Arabic he called it ulu. And the second quality is masterful. It is poetic, well-conceived, articulate. Zubda, it's like the essence or the summary. And hikmah dispenses with the details. So yeah, like it's, concise, I guess. And then hikmah and hikam, they are shortcuts to the truth, and they are knowledge of the true nature of things. And then I wrote al-hikmah tawazzun. I don't know what that means.
Al-Hikmata what?
توازن. No, al-hikmah, توازن.
Oh, balance. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then there's
توازن.
like stuff about there's stuff about like examples of the embodiments for I wrote Socrates epitomizes wisdom, and for the spiritual reason that God made him famous because of his wisdom. And then yeah, that's it. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff about aql and wahm and ghadab and faculties.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're reading, but you reminded me of a saying, "Rubba
It's my
sukutu."
notes from
Oh, just sorry,
the
no.
Professor Dr. Mustafa said.
Oh, right. Yeah, you reminded me of that saying I mentioned, "Rubba sukutu ablagu min al-kalami," which means that you know it's often the case, or it may be the case, that silence is more articulate than speech. Yeah, maybe we should leave it there. There isn't an anagram really that looks interesting at all, actually. There's only one, kamaha, which doesn't look like a common word, but it looks like. See, this is why I think, like, the anagrams are important, because like they happen like naturally, right? So here he's saying that like kamahadab, which means signifying pulling the horse. So it's the same meaning. So and like this, we saw this with Sudanese and modern colloquial Egyptian too, right? Like we say goes instead of zawj for pair, partner, spouse. And Sudanese people say, what is it for chicken? They say, like, instead of dajaj, they say like jadaj, or I forget what, something like that. They flip the letters around. So it's something like, I think it's, I think there's a neurolinguistic component here too, because like that paper that we shared a couple of weeks ago about like how um, patients or Arabic L1 speakers were less likely to develop like Alzheimer's or some kind of like um, linguistic aphasia.
Neurodegenerative disease.
Yeah, some kind of like linguistic related brain thing, and they think that it's because of the non-concatenated morphology in Arabic. Whereas where you can flip words around like that, and like meaning isn't, or we can flip sounds around and meaning isn't lost. Yeah. But
Wait, did we talk about ما يؤتى الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا?
maybe indirectly, but no,
Yeah,
nobody
but
brought up
it's
that. Yeah.
I think it's in Surah Al-Baqarah that يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء. Allah gives hikmah to whoever He wills, and hikmah is خيرا كثيرا, like it's really good, or like it's like khair can even mean money actually, right? Like it's just like something that's so good, and I think for me like this is important because a lot of times, especially a lot of people assume that hikmah comes with age, and that's not true.
Yeah.
Because Allah is saying يُؤْتِي الْحِكْمَةَ مَن يَشَاءُ. Oh, and actually, contrary to that popular perception, I think it is said in the Quran about, I believe, Yahya alayhi salam and also Isa alayhi salam, آتَيْنَاهُ الْحُكْمَ الصَّبِيَّةَ, about Yahya alayhi salam, that we gave him hikmah while he was a boy. So like it's not, so it's like God gives it to whoever He wills. Like it's a manifestation of Al-Hakim and Al-Hakim. It's not a manifestation of age or reflection, or doesn't have a correlation with age.
Yeah, that's a really important point, I think, too. يؤتي الحكمة makes me want to look again here and see where else hikmah appears. So hikmah as wisdom appears 20 times, whereas hukm, which is like a judgment, appears 30 times. Sorry, I keep sneezing. Hopefully it's just some dust. يهديك ويصلح بالك. So hikmah appears 20 times. Let's see if anything
Why
kind
do
of.
we say judgment? I feel like we should also say ruling.
as in like an Islamic ruling, like as in like, do this or don't do that, instead of like judgment where it sounds like there was a conflict and then there's a ruling given based on conflict, but it's just like you know, like
Yeah,
hakama, as in, oh, God just said do this or do that, or don't do this or don't do that. Like that's a ruling, like a religious ruling.
synonymous. I think it's kind of synonymous. Oh, this is interesting. So al-kitab, the book is made synonymous with wisdom.
It's not made
Well,
synonymous with wisdom.
often it is. يتلو عليهم آياتك ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة. I
Yeah, so
mean,
it's kitaba wal hikmah. So they're two different things.
I mean, it's often paired with it. Is all I'm saying is that wisdom and the book are
Oh wait,
often.
that reminds me, there's also a hadith, but I don't know, one of my teachers said is not legit, but that a hikmah dalatul mu'min, that hikmah is the lost property of the believer. Wherever he finds it, he takes it. And so it's like, you know, the kitab is something that is given to the mu'min, like it's for sure, for mu'mineen, but then hikmah it can also be found in other religions. And yeah, and I think it's also in the dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam made to that God, that Allah sends a messenger from amongst their dhurriyyah who will teach them the kitab and the hikmah and yuzakkihim and purify them. So it's like those three almost like functions of prophethood to teach. Yeah, it's over here. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ.
Yeah, almost. I think every single
To
ayah.
purify them and
Yeah,
then to teach them the kitab and the hikmah. So it's like an additional thing. Obviously, it's also in the kitab, there's hikmah, obviously.
yeah. Pretty much every time the word wisdom appears, it's in the context of Allah teaching it. And the book. حكمة بالغة فما تغني النذر. I forgot what surah that is. That's probably the only one that kind of stands out. But I assume it's also in reference to the text itself. Let's see. Yeah. Surah Al-Qamar. It's probably referring to like an older text, I think. Okay. I did have one other thought. Oh yeah.
Wait, we should also look into, and I was thinking about this actually before the session, we should look into the surah where Luqman alayhi salam story is said, because I was thinking like when you said hikmah, I was like, oh, Hakim Luqman, and like we say that. In here it says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ, and then of course there's more. So like the things that he says to his, I think, son, like those are hikam. Like, for example, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ, and do this and do that, or don't do this. I don't remember exactly, but we should look into that. Those are hikams for sure, because Allah is saying here, we gave him hikmah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that is, but I guess it's worth
It's
mentioning
right
and
here on the
pointing.
screen. You scrolled up, go down.
Where? I mean, I think it's. I mean, I guess it's worth mentioning also that like hikam, right? Like you said, why do we translate it as judgment? And it's synonymous with ruling, but we also kind of use it differently than we do it in English because it's kind of like the plural of wisdom, right? Hikam is like wisdoms or like insights or like almost like no, I don't want to say proverbs, but like there's got to be a
Can
better
I say
word.
something?
Yeah, of course.
So, Zanira asked, like, why is it like judgments and not just rulings? And I think, I mean, obviously, like, it can also be rulings and stuff, and there are things that like Allah does. Obviously, He decides, but then there's also this element of how there's no compulsion in religion, right? Like, and how Allah doesn't impose anything that's for no reason. Everything, even if even if He has the right to like do that, to like impose something like, okay, this has been made lawful for you, this has been made unlawful for you. That's it. You follow that. But there's always there's always like it's kind of like a thing of being on the middle way, right? Like it's something that's like whatever's best for you. So that comes in with like, judgment, like you were saying, like as if there's like a decision to be made, right? Like things have to be considered. There's like a push and pull, and then decision has to be made. And it is like that because there's so much multiplicity in existence. But then Allah knows through like, his like perfect knowledge what is right and what's not. And then he decided what was best for us and stuff, and he gave us that, right? Like he gave it to us as a roadmap. And so I think in that way, like I actually enjoy the fact that it's like judgment and not just like ruling, because it's like a lot. I think that kind of cuts you off a little bit. It makes you feel a little bit disconnected. Like, oh, I just told you to do this thing, but Allah doesn't relate to us in that way. Like he doesn't kind of like he's not so indifferent to us, right? He never speaks to us in such a way that makes us feel like it's like, like we're just kind of being ordered or like, punted around. Like it's you, when the more you look at the speech of Allah, the more taken care of and like considered and loved you feel, especially like in surahs. And I think that is why, because when you are reading surahs that are very heavy on the rulings, like it's like this is fine, this is not fine, this is fine, this is not fine, it can read as like just like dry and legal. But then when you have something like kind of activated inside you, you understand, like you never feel more loved than you do in those surahs, because you're kind of seeing the fact that he has all this wisdom, and the fact is you just can't know, all of the things that Allah knows, and he's kind of made it so easy for you. And if that's not an act of love, like, you want to make things the easiest for the people who you love the most, and you want to help out as much as you can and kind of, give them everything that you can give them. So it's like you feel so loved when you read those things in that kind of context.
Well, that brings up an interesting point in that there's a few derivatives that we haven't really paid attention to. So there's hakama, which is the verb, right? And then there's also hakama or hakamatun, which is the noun meaning the girdle or the halter or the bit. And then there's hakim and hakam, which both can pretty much mean judge. And there's hakim, which generally means wise. It's also used as like a title for like, the head of a town or a village or something like that. Or also I think like in Sufi circles, right? Like a hakim is like a healer. And then there's also hukm, right? And hikmah, right? And as we just saw, hikmah is often associated with the book and, and with what Allah teaches directly. But then also you have hukm, which is also found in similar contexts as well, where like where Allah will say, for example, I just lost it, but he gives, I think, in specific context to specific prophets. Do I keep passing it? Right here, okay. أن يؤتيه الله الكتاب والحكم والنبوة. So in this context, hukm is also paired with kitab, the way hikmah was. Hukm Allah, right, here translated as the command of Allah. وكيف يحكمونك وعندهم التوراة فيها حكم الله. So here it's saying that in the Torah, in the Torah was the hukm of Allah, was the wisdom or the command of Allah. Another ayah also says, أَفَحُكْمُ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ, right? So is it the hukm of the jahiliyyah? So here the meaning seems to be a bit more broad than hikmah. Hikmah seems to be more specific. And usually that pattern of like fi'la usually indicates an instance of something, and like a single serving or a single instance of something or a single case of something. Whereas hukm I think often is a plural too. Often it's not, but sometimes it's a plural. And I guess hukm, it's probably not as common as like fa'al or fi'l, right? Those noun forms, like So you only usually I think you only see hukm and that pattern of like fa'al in like maladies actually. Those are the ones that are coming to my mind. So like summun, bukmun, um, humma is a fever. Yeah. So that's interesting. I'd have to think about that a bit more, but yeah, there's a difference at least, between hikmah and hukm. I think generally a hukm is more broad and just means authority, right? Like that's kind of the more broad meaning, and hikmah is like an instance of authority. Okay, yeah, little tangent there. And then of course next week or next name is Al-Adl. So
Sorry, can I say something?
of course, no need to
So it says
apologize.
at the bottom, that's where the reference is. يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة وآتيناه الحكم صبيا. We
Mm,
gave him hukm when he was, sorry, I think I said hikmah, astaghfirullah, earlier. So, but I think it's so interesting here in two instances, hukm is associated with another name or like an attribute, Asra'ul Hasibin, or Hasib is also a name of Allah, of course. So it's like, it's not just like, oh, Allah gives the hukum, but then like we're held, because we were speaking about accountability, right? And account, I think even inside of account, there's a word count. And hisab is also about like counting and like doing math. And so it's like, in one way, the way that people get to heaven or hell is by counting or like weighing, right? The good versus the bad deeds. And so it's like, it's interesting that Allah is saying, oh, it's not just that Allah gives a ruling, but then we are accountable. And He's very quick to account. So it's like, ألا له الحكم وهو أسرع الحاسبين. والله يحكم لا معقب لحكمه وهو سريع الحساب. That He's giving it, sorry, He's really quick to take account. So that means like, be careful what you did with the hukum, right? Like it's like an implied, like subtle warning. And it's interesting here, it's so beautiful because it's talking about the language. وَكَذَلِكَ أَنزَلْنَاهُ حُكْمًا عَرَبِيًّا. So
yeah, I'm
this
just
is
seeing that.
beautiful to linked to the actual language of the Quran. And then even this term here, خير الفاصلين إن الحكم إلى لله يقص الحق وهو خير الفاصلين. That's also like I don't know how that's translated, but that also sounds like something about like like judgment and accountability. So it's interesting, like it's all these. Is it called a register? Like words with connected meanings? There's quite a few. But he makes, like in Urdu we say faisla, which means decision, and it's the same word I think.
Well, you lost me a little bit.
إن الحكم إلا لله يقص الحق وهو خير الفاصلين.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, what is خير الفاصل? What's fasilin? Is it also like a decision? Because in Urdu we say faisla to mean decision, to make
Oh,
a
okay.
decision. I
We
mean,
talked about this before, I think, when we talked about like, my fundamental frame idea and like stories and how stories work. And qissa in Arabic coming from the idea of qassa, which means to cut, right? So a story is a qissa. So Allah says,
No, I said the one about fasilin, not qissa.
but before that, Allah says, يقص الحق, right? That's what that is, right? يقص الحق وهو خير الفاصلين, right? So qassa here, or يقص قصة means that Allah is the one that's kind of telling, like I think you can interpret it as Allah is the one who's telling the true story, right? He's the one who's telling, the true. He's the one who's laying out reality, kind of like a story, right? Eh, People bring up this like framing idea. I think sometimes even outside of this, like our sessions, right, when they're talking about like كل يوم هو في شأن, right? Every moment, not just every day, but every moment he's in some kind of shatn, some kind of station or action or work or something, right? So I think people tie that right to this idea that like every moment that we're given is like a God annihilates the world and recreates it in every single moment. So that kind of connects the idea for me as well. Right? I kind of think of it as that as well, right? Because يقص الحق, that's literally in the most literal sense. It means and he cuts or splits the truth. And then وهو خير الفاصلين, and he is the best of dividers, right? He's the best of separators. And that I think is part of wisdom, right? Is like your ability to cut things out, right? Filter things out, like we were saying, separate things and bring things together in an intelligent and smart way. Yeah. But then, yeah, the other area that you mentioned, وَكَذَلِكَ أَنزَلْنَاهُ حُكْمًا عَرَبِيًّا, is interesting, because that kind of implies that like there are non-Arabic authorities, right, or non-Arabic wisdoms. If you take the meaning here, I guess a little literally. Yeah. Cool. Any final thoughts? I thought I had one more thought on hukm versus hikmah, but I don't think so. Oh, hakka. So yeah, I guess that actually brings an interesting point. So there's no anagram that's interesting here, but you do have some interesting partial root thing. We can always look at partial roots even if the anagrams aren't there. I don't know how you feel as much about partial roots, but
They're fake.
I mean, I think that's obviously. I mean, I think there's way more evidence for partial roots than for the anagrams having any kind of anything more than coincidence. But
so you admit it?
No, I mean, I think there are even some like linguists that believe that, like, for some reason, most Arab linguists believe that all words come from a triliteral root, even if it's only 2 letters. There is still 3 because the last one's doubled, which I think has some merit to it, because even if the letters are doubled, they're both still a little bit different. But
Yeah, I agree with you.
some Semiticists think that, like, and I think it's pretty obvious that some of the triliteral roots definitely came from roots that only had 2 letters. Anyway, so hukm, hakama, hikmah, all these words, they come from that root, and we talked about all those meanings. If you just look at hak, you get scratched, right? So hakka means to like scratch something. Which I don't know why. I think that's kind of like significant for me. I don't really know how to explain exactly why. But then if you put a ya at the end, you get hakaya, which is a story, which I think is kind of interesting and relevant too. But
and also speech. احكي عربي.
Yeah, I guess well, let's take a look. Actually, hakaya. So yeah, okay. To recount is the base kind of idea. So that's generally how it was used, I guess. Before it meant a narrative or a hikaya. Oh, a calumnious woman. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that
means false and
relates.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I
have to look it up.
But
why woman? Yeah.
I mean, it's just the entry that Lane has. Imratun hakayun. But
repeats. Oh, okay. So let's talk about speech again.
Yeah. I guess just gossip. Okay, so what was I saying? Okay, story. Yeah, I think like storytelling is like, the best storytellers are usually like they have a little bit of wisdom, right? Even if it's not like, the wisdom that's going to save your soul, they have some insight into human behavior, right? They have some insight into what makes human beings tick. Otherwise, they wouldn't be good storytellers. Yeah, so I think that's a point of reflection that one can find fairly often, right? Because wherever you are, usually you are either, if you're not bored out of your mind, you're being entertained in some way, or you're entertaining somebody, or you're I mean, I guess you're working. That's what most of us do besides leisure. But usually, even when we're working towards some kind of leisure, right? إنما الحياة لهو ولعب, as Allah says, right? That most of life is just distraction and play. But in all the play that we do, in all the entertainment that we consume, I think it's a good point of reflection to think of the people that are involved in relaying and recounting the stories and the insights that we come across, right? Because, like, I mean, I think it's always fascinating for me to even just look at the credits of a movie, right? Like, how many people are involved in making, like, some of the movies that are made, and a lot of it is trivial and frivolous and distraction, sure, but art has an ability to also teach us and show us things about ourselves and our lives and the world. Everything is a mirror, so it's up to you what you choose to pay attention to. But yeah, I think that's one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and that's like the power of human beings in tandem, right? In collaboration with each other, in teams, and as movements and forces of nature. We can do some pretty amazing things when we combine our forces, and there's a wisdom in that. Okay, khair, inshallah. I think that's all for me. Anybody have any final thoughts?
So did you say you're going to stay on? Because
Yeah,
Amara's
I
going to join, or what?
yeah, I think I'm just gonna stay on while I'm working. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, like, I think
So
that
you just want to kick us out? That's what you're just telling me?
no, you guys feel free to stay. I think I'll probably take a few breaks.
Because you keep saying any final thoughts, any final thoughts.
Well, here's a final thought. I think hakka, right? The partial root here, and the partial word of meaning to scratch. I think it relates in that, like, in my guerrilla rebel revolutionary spirit, I always have to kind of bring it up, that there are a lot of zombies and NPCs, and I don't know what's a polite and fair way to refer to the majority of mankind, right? I mean, I don't think it's fair for me to use that kind of phrasing, right? Because, like, we are among those people, right? But I think there's a difference between people who make a continuous effort to look beneath the surface or read between the lines and speak and think freely, and those who don't. But anyway, so the link for me is that, like, I think wisdom often, and not just wisdom, but like the judgments and decrees and authority of anybody. As much as I am a rebel and revolutionary, or anarchist even, I do believe in law and order. I just think there's a right way of doing it and a crappy way of doing it. So I'm not, like, just a complete rebel without a cause. I have vision and purpose and some goals in mind. But I think for a lot of people, the truth, wisdom, knowledge, whatever you want to call it, scratches at them. It pokes at them. And I think even you can relate this even to, like, just the ahkam of Allah. Sometimes they poke at us, right? Sometimes it's like, getting up at at the crack of dawn to wash your face with cold water or whatever it is, and pray, or do whatever it is that you need to do, to be an upright citizen, and a good human being, and a good Muslim, and a good son or daughter or husband or wife or whatever it is. It scratches at us sometimes. Sometimes we just want to, be in leisure and pleasure and comfort, and not be burdened by judgment and decree and authority, and yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents for how the partial root plays in our conversation here. Yeah, I guess if there's nothing else, feel free to hang out, and I guess I should turn off the recording. But yeah, if you want to hang out and work or do something else, and an idea comes to mind, let me know. You can start recording again, or I'm probably gonna step away, do things and pray. So if you don't hear me, then I'll probably come back. I think if everybody leaves, eventually it will just shut down. So whether I'm in here or not, I think Google kicks you out. It doesn't want you to be in a meeting room by yourself. It's too lonely. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll switch to streaming on Discord or Twitch or something like that. That might be more. I think that might be better for the future anyway, because the WhatsApp group is kind of dead to me most of the time, and Discord is just better for like popping in and out of like a voice channel. I think you can do voice channels on WhatsApp as well, but I don't think it's as good as like WhatsApp. Sorry.
No, it doesn't work in my country.
What's that?
It doesn't work in my country.
Discord?
No, WhatsApp call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Discord does though.
No, Discord works. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe Twitch, or I don't know why all these streaming platforms have like such unfortunate names. But yeah. Okay. Khair, inshallah. If no other thoughts now or the next couple of hours.
Understand. Because Mara was asking if we're gonna end or not. So what should I say?
Oh, I can
She
respond.
can come or what?
Well, I mean, if she wants to come now, she can feel free to come. Does she have any thoughts? If she wants to listen to us, I think we're done. But I'll upload the videos later.
Okay, you said you're staying for Ahmad, and I do be having FOMO sometimes, even though I'm not actually processing in many things today. So, but still.
I mean, if Mara has something that she wants to contribute, then she can feel free to join in, and then yeah, we can continue the conversation. Or you can just tell her to not, because you're tired and you're sick and you don't want to be left out, and we can continue the conversation in the chat, or not next week, but the week after that. Or maybe we switch to Sunday, because I can't do next Saturday, but I can do the next Sunday. Yeah, I guess I'll just ask.
I think it would be nice to take a break from time to time, because it's hard to manage like every single week, like regardless of the day. So it's nice to like have a little bit of break and then come back. So I actually like the fact that like if we just skip like every third week of the month, like if we just skip, like I think that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind either way. If we have numbers, then no reason not to. So yeah, I'll still just ask at the group. But if not, then yeah, then 3 times a month is more than enough. But yeah, Discord is also nice because, like, if I'm working or if I have free time, and I'm at my desk, or even if I'm on the go, sometimes I'll even on my phone, like the app is convenient. I can just hop into like a voice channel, and anybody can join, and then that's how a very large portion of the global community actually, I think, communicates. If you guys are not aware, but like especially like the gaming community, I had many friends in many like servers and channels across the globe, that we would play games with, and you just hop in these Discord, voice channels. I think a lot of people also do it with like Teams and Slack and business and professional settings as well. But yeah, I think it's a really powerful, useful communication tool. Mushroom would probably be better off using it, to be honest. Like even Dr. Ferris's classes, right? Like, you just pop into a voice channel, easy to record, easy to stream. All right, clear. I'm gonna mute myself, pause the recording, and until next time, inshallah.
We should start the recording now, I think.
What's that? What was that? Someone say something? No?
Mom said something. I didn't hear it either.
Yeah.
Mom, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I'm just reading the chat now.
Oh, sorry. No, I said I was reminding Omar to end the recording if this is it, because otherwise it'll just go on forever.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay. That's weird. Did it stop?